Have you ever felt like the odds were completely stacked against you? Like you were facing an army of problems with barely any strength left to fight? If so, you need to hear the incredible story of a man named Gideon. Imagine this. Your country is in ruins, constantly under attack by ruthless invaders who steal your food and destroy your land. Your people are hiding in caves, starving and terrified. This was the grim reality for the ancient Israelites who were being oppressed by a massive army of Midianites. And who does God choose to save them? Not a powerful king or a seasoned general. He chooses Gideon, a simple farmer who was so afraid he was threshing wheat in a winepress just to hide from the enemy. When an angel appears and calls him a mighty warrior, Gideon's response is basically, "Are you talking to me?" He says his family is the weakest in their tribe, and he's the least important person in his family. He was full of doubt and felt completely insignificant. Sound familiar? We've all been there, feeling like we're not good enough or strong enough for the challenges we face. Gideon's story is so relatable because he wasn't a superhero. He was human. He was scared. He needed proof. Before he would even consider leading an army, he asked God for a sign, not once, but twice. He laid a piece of wool, a fleece, on the ground. He said, "God, if you're really with me, let the fleece be wet with dew in the morning, but the ground around it be dry." The next day, it happened exactly as he asked. He wrung a whole bowl of water from the fleece. But Gideon was still hesitant. He thought maybe this is just a fluke. So he asked again, this time for the opposite. "Please don't be angry with me," he said, "but let me test you just once more. This time, let the fleece be dry, and let the ground all around it be covered with dew." And again, God patiently did exactly what Gideon asked. This tells us something crucial. It's okay to have questions. It's okay to need reassurance when you're being asked to do something that feels impossible. Faith isn't about blindly jumping without thinking. It's about building trust step by step. God met Gideon right where he was, in his fear and his doubt, and gave him the confidence he needed to move forward. So, feeling a little more confident, Gideon gathers an army. A respectable force of 32,000 men assembles, ready to fight for their freedom. It's still a long shot against the massive Midianite horde, but at least they have a fighting chance. Right? Well, this is where the story takes a turn that defies all human logic. God looks at Gideon's army and says, "You have too many men." Too many. They were already the underdogs. God explains that if they win with such a large army, the Israelites will boast that they saved themselves with their own strength. God wanted to make it undeniably clear that this victory would be his and his alone. So he gives Gideon an instruction. Announce to the army, God says anyone who is afraid or trembling can go home. Gideon makes the announcement, and you won't believe what happens next. 22,000 men turn around and leave. 22,000, more than 2/3 of his army just walked away because they were scared. Now, Gideon is left with only 10,000 soldiers. The odds just went from bad to— Can you imagine how Gideon must have felt watching his army shrink before his very eyes? But God wasn't done. He looks at the remaining 10,000 men and says to Gideon, "There are still too many." This is just insane, right? God tells Gideon to take the men down to the water to drink, and he'll use that to filter them down even further. He gives a peculiar instruction. He's to separate the men who get on their knees and put their face in the water to drink, from the men who stay alert, scooping water to their mouths with their hands. Most of the men knelt down to drink. Only a tiny group, 300 men, lapped the water from their hands like a dog. And God says, "That's it. Those are your soldiers. With these 300 men, I will save you and defeat the Midianites. Send everyone else home." Now, stop and think about this. Even after all this, God knew Gideon was still terrified. So, in another act of incredible kindness, God tells him to sneak down to the Midianite camp that night with his servant. As they creep near the enemy tents, they overhear two soldiers talking. One man is telling the other about a dream he had, where a loaf of barley bread tumbled into the Midianite camp and struck a tent so hard that it collapsed.